ahead.
Only kids on Fridays.
Okay. This is the Village of Peotone Board meeting for August 11th, 2014. We begin by rising to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Reichert?
Here.
Mr. Hupkey?
Here.
Mr. Wicker?
Here.
Mr. Hack?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Forsythe?
Here.
Okay, let the record show that all trustees are present. We have a quorum and they officially conduct business. First order of business being the approval or correction of the minutes from July 28th, 2014. Trustees, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion. Second.
Motion by trustee Callahan, seconded by trustee Reichert, to approve the July 28th, 2014 regular village board meeting minutes as presented. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Present.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Present.
We have enough officially approved that as minutes, so those have now become the official record. Next item on your agenda, trustees, is the accounts payable and payroll. We have the payroll for the pay period ending August 2nd, 2014, in the amount of $43,242.63. We also have under accounts payable from the general fund bills totaling $69,821.57. In the motor fuel tax, we have bills totaling $213,634.61. Under the water and sewer fund, we have bills totaling $84,322.54. Now, trustees, I call your attention to items later on the agenda for final approval for the Rathje Road project. And the $213,634.61 from the motor fuel tax. When I ask for the motion, that will be contingent upon it being approved for payment later on the agenda. And out of the water and sewer fund, there's $52,062.75 that will be contingent upon approval of the payment to the Rathje Road project, because the two items together total $265,697.36, which is the final payment amount due for that. So I will entertain a motion.
I have an inquiry into one of these bills.
Sure, what would that be?
Under the Buxton Company
Yeah.
for $38,000. Has the Buxton Group fulfilled its promises and commitment to the village for this second payment?
It's an ongoing process. In order, the first items that they were responsible for providing in the first year's contract, they are complete on in terms of doing the surveys, providing us with the necessary reports and the contact information for the 20 prospective businesses that the trustees have selected as part of that survey.
That was my next question. But is it possible to maybe schedule another meeting with them, with the board, at some point in time here, for updates or any other questions that the trustees may have as to
I will check into
the
that
process?
Yeah.
Have their efforts been what we anticipated? And I don't mean results, I mean efforts. Are the efforts what we anticipated?
Yeah. Part of it is the understanding that they are a support group and we are the action group. And it's working through that. But they continue to offer additional support. I think, as I indicated at the last meeting, that they said they would participate in joint conference calls with prospective people and provide whatever additional information is needed by those people. So, other questions? Okay, I will look into that matter and see if we can schedule somebody.
Thank you.
And I'm still looking for a motion to...
I make a motion, we pay the bills based on consensus.
Okay, motion by... Motion by trustee Wicker to approve the bills with the contingencies of the approval for the dollar amounts going out to the Rathje Road construction project later in the agenda. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by trustee Riker. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries and the bills paid as noted. We come to the part of the agenda for public comment for any non-agenda items. So if you're on the agenda later, that's when we'll talk about it. Is there anybody here with something for a non-agenda item? Hearing none, I will move on to the reports of committees and officials. Police chief's report, chief?
Really nothing at this time, Mr. Green.
Okay. Engineers report. Troy, any updates?
Still, we're working on the annual street program, and we're
Okay.
hoping to have that out to bid next week.
Per what we have worked on, what we agreed to at the previous meeting. Thank you. Trustees, any questions of the engineer?
Where do we sit with the sidewalk on Wilmington Road?
We are waiting for the grant agreement to come back from the state. Can't technically spend any money until we get that back. And
Gotcha.
it was submitted probably within 2 or 3 days after we approved it to the village board.
George, do you think that they'll still go through this fiscal year? Because I know there's money in there for the sidewalk in addition to the grant. And if it's not gonna happen this fiscal year, can we use that money to do sidewalks elsewhere and then re-budget for next year or no?
I will try once again to get some kind of time deadline. I mean, the short answer is, yes, we'll have to reappropriate. If the grant program doesn't go through this fiscal year, this construction season, we'll have to reappropriate, I think it was $40,000 or $50,000 next fiscal year. But that's, my recollection is that $50,000 of local match was pretty much sidewalk. So if we can get a firm answer that we're not going to have time, that it's not going to be done in time, then yes, we can use it for something else, for other sidewalks.
All right. Let's move on the agenda. There's nothing under old business. Under new business, the first item is the special event permit for the Peotone Historical Society for the Fall Festival, September 14, 2014, from 11 until 5 p.m.
The Peotone Historical Society is basically asking for their fall festival again, September 14th from 11 to 5. Historically, we do part of a street closure and give them a special event permit to do that. It's typically closed Conrad Street, I believe, to Division 1 lane so they can get through. Mill, yeah, it is Mill. I'm sorry.
And this appears to be the usual type of offerings in terms of sale items and demonstrations. I know last year I was in with some of the kids doing the rope making. That was fun. Okay. So, is there a motion to approve the special event permit for the Peotone Historical Society for the Old Mill Fest to take place on September 14th, 2014, from 11 a.m. till 5 p.m. In front, with the closure in front of the mill.
Motion.
Second.
A motion by trustee Hupkey, seconded by trustee Forsythe, to approve the special event request permit by the Peotone Historical Society. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hack? Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, and look forward to seeing everybody out there again this year. The next item is a business registration. George?
And this business registration is submitted by Mr. William Presto for Greasy Cheek Automotive. It's just across the street from the Village Hall. It's basically an automotive service. They previously obtained the proper special uses and zoning from P&Z and the Village Board. And this is just his business registration.
Was there some business registration there in the last several months?
I'm
At
sorry?
the same location? Wasn't there recently a business registration at the same location?
Peotone Oil and Lube.
Is that,
Yeah.
is this gonna be a joint operation at the same?
No, the Greasy Cheek Automotive replaced the Peotone Quick Lube.
It is a
Oh,
replacement?
okay.
Yeah. mhm.
Okay.
Thanks for asking, because I wasn't sure of that either.
They still do oil changes and tires and things, but
New entity, okay.
Okay. Motion to approve the permit by trustee Forsythe, seconded by
Second.
trustee Hupkey. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, and they're officially registered as a business in this community now. Next item is business registration for 30 Minutes Fitness.
30 Minutes Fitness, they want to open up a gym with cardiac and resistance exercise, 30-minute circuit with additional cardiac machines, treadmills, bikes at 120 Main Street. Is there anyone here from the business? This is a chance to get some
Come
PR.
up and get some
come up
advertisement.
Some advertisement?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen Connect. Interested in opening a fitness center. I think the community could really use it. It is geared toward a mature audience. It's not a lot of weights or anything like that, but the hours are going to be from 6A to 8P. And we plan on having a access so people can go in and out like they do now in some of the fitness centers, excuse me.
Like a key card access?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you have any questions?
No, just give us whatever sales pitch you want to give in order to get some people to know more about
Well, you know what,
fitness.
everybody needs to stay fit, so, you know, you can't be sitting in your chairs all the time. So, yeah, we would really like to see everybody come out, of course. And I had heart surgery, so I have to stay with a cardiac rehab kind of regimen, and this just fits right in with it. It's not super strenuous, but it will help your cardiovascular. So,
Are you going to be doing some kind of grand opening or something like that?
to be determined, yes. I don't know about blocking off a street or anything like that, but definitely sign up incentives.
Okay.
So it'll be affordable. We're just trying to have a little bit of a health ministry going out there, so.
Is this co-ed for men and women? Is it geared
Yes.
toward one of, okay.
Okay. And you're targeting this towards the beginning of October?
Yes,
Okay.
just when everybody needs it, right before the holidays.
Uh-huh.
Then right after the holidays.
Exactly.
Trustees, do you have any questions? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the business registration of 30 Minute Fitness.
So moved. Second.
Motion by trustee Wicker, seconded by trustee Forsythe to approve the business registration. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Motion carries, and Congratulations. Thank you for starting the business here.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approving the contract with the Peotone, with the police union, Teamsters Local 700.
The village has completed collective bargaining with the police union, Local 700, and the local has ratified the contract. The contract has a term of 5 years, expiring in March 31st of 2019. And the action requested is to execute police collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 700 to expire in 2019.
And trustees, we've been dealing with this for several months now, so I will entertain a motion to approve the contract with Police Union Teamsters Local 700 with a term ending March 31st of 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Wicker, seconded by trustee Reichert to approve the contract with Local 700 as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries and approves the contract that extends to March 31st of 2019. Next item on the agenda, in relation to that, the approval of participation in the Teamsters Health and Welfare Fund. George?
One component of the new police contract is that the union members will transition from the village health insurance plan to the health insurance plan provided by the Teamsters, which is Local 727. In order to authorize the transition, the attached, I didn't attach it, I'm sorry, but it's 2 pages. The participation agreement must be approved and executed. The transition will occur the first full month following ratification, which is probably September 1. An explanatory note, the police contract is Local 700, but the health and welfare fund is through Local 727. So we need authorization to execute the participation agreement so that the transition may occur.
Okay. So I'm requesting a motion to execute a participation agreement for Teamsters Local 727 Health and Welfare Fund.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Wicker.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Reichert to execute a participation agreement for the Teamsters Local 727 Health and Welfare Fund ending on March 31st, 2019. Clerk, please call the roll. Got ahead of you, didn't I?
Moved it. Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries and that project, or that agreement will be signed. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, approval of the final IDOT payment request for the 2009 Rathje Road reconstruction project. George?
2009 Rathje Road project, which was reconstructing Rathje Road from Wilmington Road to Corning Avenue, was conducted under STP funding, which is Surface Transportation Plan Program funding requirements. These guidelines stipulate that IDOT will let and award bids, pay the contractor pay request, and invoice local units for their respective shares. The village has budgeted our local share for several years, waiting on the final invoice from IDOT. We have received the invoice in the amount of $265,697.36. Of this amount, $213,634.61 will be paid from motor fuel tax, and $52,062.75 from water funds. The water funding was used to replace and also oversize water mains in the area of the project while the road was open. This payment will officially close out obligations for this project. You have a letter of recommendation from Robinson Engineering. Do you have any other comments, Mr. Cole?
It just takes a long time for them to, at least you knew it was coming.
For the last 5 years, we've been budgeting it and rolling it over until they asked for the money. It's nice to finally take care of something, no longer have to keep transferring over on the books. So I'm asking for a motion to approve payment of invoice number 107178 in the amount of $265,697.36 to IDOT.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Reichert, seconded by trustee Wicker to approve payment to IDOT for the final Rathje Road project. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe?
Yes.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, and that check is on its way. Next item on the agenda is participation in the Illiana Corridor Planning Grant.
Federal government, through IDOT, has awarded Will and Kankakee counties a $625,000 grant for land use planning along the Illiana corridor. The purpose of the grant is to undertake coordinated multi-jurisdictional land use, transportation, and economic development planning in the Illiana corridor. Planning participants include the villages of Beecher, Manhattan, Peotone if we participate, and the city of Wilmington. The county of Will shall also develop a land use plan with input from corresponding townships. Kankakee County and the villages of Manteno and Grant Park will also participate in the grant. Additional stakeholders include Medewan, Will County Center for Economic Development, Economic Alliance of Kankakee County, CMAP, and the transit agencies. Each grant participant will have their own project and select their own consultant while interfacing with the larger group as a whole. Simply put, Will and Kankakee counties received a grant. We are using a sub-grant to do our own little specialized area. They will have a larger, broader grant and plan. Will and Kankakee counties will each contribute 50% to the local match for the county portion of the plan. Each Will County community will fund a project cost of $37,500 in grant funds. There's a little bit of flexibility there. Could be just a little bit more. Payment is an 80-10-10 split, with 80% federal, 10% IDOT, and 10% village. Thus, the federal grant would pay $30,000, IDOT would pay $3,750, and the village obligation would be $3,750. The grant agreement has a term of 2 years, beginning on the date of the signed grant agreement. Upon an approved application and agreement, grant funds become available for use on July 1, 2014. IDOT estimates it will take 6 to 8 weeks to process each agreement. This draft scope of work has received a first look unofficial okay from IDOT. And that scope reads as, the focus of the study will identify potential sites within the planning area for recreational and tourism development and the relationship to transportation linkage and coordination. This scope will enable us to create a strategy to prioritize, protect, acquire, and develop those areas. Items to be targeted included nature areas, water areas, potential trailways, future park green space, historical sites, Native American sites, archaeological sites, etc. Our revised comprehensive plan will structure future land use for those designated in adjoining areas and study how to improve transportation assets in order to foster recreation and tourism, thus bringing another dimension to our future economic development and growth. We anticipate that this work will coordinate a more enriched corridor development plan with themes apparent across the greater corridor area. So in other words, basically we're going to be focusing on nature areas, water areas, trailways, green space, parks, historical sites, etc. For basically nature studies, also trails and nature studies and tourism and recreation. If authorized, the village will prepare a grant application and determine the formal grant agreement for board action. And what we require tonight is a decision on whether you want to participate in the corridor study. That will be, if the answer to that is yes, that will be, we will submit a grant agreement and that will come to the board for final action.
Okay, so is there a motion to participate in the Illiana Corridor Planning Grant with Will County and the other communities?
How much land does this encompass for the study? And
For
where?
us?
Yeah.
Potentially, it's the corridor area related to our boundary agreements with the two communities on either side, and Kankakee County to the south, so to speak.
In our current village planning that we do, does that incorporate this area, or will it? If we didn't participate in this, would our next revision to that incorporate this, the Illiana
The
corridor?
plan we just did incorporates this.
Right.
This came along kind of the tail end of the plan we just
Yep.
adopted.
Okay.
We obviously didn't see it coming.
Right.
I think one of the aspects of this is, I know Beecher and Wilmington, I'm pretty sure Manhattan are participating. I know all of the economic development agencies are participating. I know Kankakee County and Will County are participating. And they've given indications that Manteno and Grant Park are planning. One reservation I have is, if we're not planning, we got a lot of people planning for the area around us.
That's right.
Without us, okay.
That's,
Without us, yes.
That's right. You know, we'll be on the outside looking in, quite frankly.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by trustee Wicker, seconded by trustee Reichert to participate in the Will County Corridor Planning Grant. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Wicker?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forsyth?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We will then move forward with participation and bring the actual grant application back to the board for final approval at that point in time. We come to the part on the agenda for correspondence, communications, and petitions. And we'll hear from anybody who's got anything. And I want to say that I've had conversations with several of the trustees about concerns they have heard from residents relative to, one, our willingness to attract other businesses and work with them to get here. And in particular, some concern over whether or not we are actively seeking a hardware store to replace the one that we had downtown. And the answer to that, number one, is yes, we are actively working with a hardware company. And we're engaged in continuing discussions, all of which seem to be very positive at this time. And to the extent that I think folks need to realize that when businesses locate, sometimes it's a major, major dollar investment. In this particular case, it would be. And they have to go through a lot of analysis and other things in spite of what we may supply them with potential customer information. And that just takes time. So I would hope that folks would be patient, that things are going in the direction that they need to go. And I don't know if anybody on this board wants to echo the thought of we are pro and actively seeking as a body additional businesses to participate in this community and not posting any blocks or barriers to those types of developments. As a matter of fact, we will work with them to encourage things similar to what we've done with some of the businesses in town that exist here in order to keep them here. So anybody has anything on this they want to say, it'd be a good time to say it.
I'd offer my agreement with your thoughts that, throughout town, over several months, if not years, there have consistently been rumors about village policies to push businesses away, but I've not encountered any sort of activity like that whatsoever, and I think more often than not, we encourage and go out of our way to attract business as often as we can. And I'm not aware of us at any point turning anyone away, despite the rumors that we hear. And so I would encourage people to look deeply into our actual activities as opposed to rumors that may be circulating.
Anybody else?
not to play devil's advocate to that, are we always notified as trustees on every inquiry from businesses, or just when they start getting serious?
I think typically when it looks more serious, because one of the things that happens is you have a lot of folks who have dreams in their life, and we've had a number of inquiries about some of the vacant property in the community, restaurants and other things, about, gee, I'm kind of interested and this is what I would do, and then you never hear again from the person. So it's one of those things that it's by mutual, I think, agreement with the potential business owner and the village as to what time you make what information public, and at what time it's a judgment on, I think, our part here as the leadership in terms of, I think we're ready, we can start saying something to the trustees because this looks like it's going to move on. So, other questions or comments?
The tornado warning sirens twice in the last 3 years since they've been activated after the severe weather has passed Peotone. Who is responsible for activating this system?
The responsibility is the EastCom dispatch area. And we had a discussion, I think it's been a couple years ago, and I'm on the board there. And we've had discussions relative to being procedures to use. And it used to be the procedure was the dispatcher had to call and get a hold of somebody in the community, typically the chief or the mayor or somebody, and verify that they should set them off. We decided after that one little small tornado that hit a few years ago just outside of town that it's silly to have to go through all that steps and try and find people and do it. If there is a warning put out for the dispatch area just to set the sirens off, or we could, from our end, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, we could request that the sirens be put off, correct?
Yes, anytime there's a severe weather outlook, it has so many different levels at the National Weather Service. I know Mr. Gray, myself, and other members of my department are online with all the notifications of the Weather Service and the bulletins that go out regarding severe weather. In our program we have for our communities, now that we have two additionals, we have Steger and South Chicago Heights in our dispatch community. We have divided the areas to two logical areas: Beecher, Moni, Peotone for the south region, and everybody else to the north region, where the weather is. So the last activation of the weather was actually was reported and activated based on some rumor of high winds going on in Frankfurt, which were not substantiated by any weather service or Will County Emergency Management, which is constantly online, monitored by me and Mr. Gray anytime severe weather is within our community. I am up at night, I know George is up at night, and we watch weather, and we have not activated the sirens on our orders this season, which is based on the weather conditions and everything else. So the sirens that were activated recently were activated as a regional plan by another community that's part of our south region. Could have been Beecher, could have been Moni. It's when it's hit, it's activated. Or if my officers see something, they can activate it by their device, or they can activate it by a call to the radio room. So this is a very defined program, so there is no we miss a storm, because I'm going to tell you, I'm up watching the activity along with Mr. Gray, and we communicate about Weather World, and we're also in contact with Will County's emergency management called the Will Warren system, that all these communities that surround us report any storm activity that has substantiated sightings, not rumor, not by the private person who says they think they've seen a tornado or severe weather. It's by a trained spotter. So we are constantly online listening to the weather channel internally. It's called the Will County Will Warn system that's activated during all severe weather. So it's very complicated, but it does run itself, and we are very aware of severe weather, and so that we do not have things of the past come up. So I haven't had one call from any public body in the community. Anybody in the community says, well, you scared me, or why are the sirens going off? I can tell you this, you won't hear them in severe weather. Some of those storms we had in July, I don't care where the sirens are, you're not going to hear them in those some storm fronts we had that hit our towns.
Well, that's kind of what I was curious about. One of the things I'm kind of concerned about, especially when we went into this program, was that if our sirens are being activated when the weather is not actually a threat to us, it could create a crying wolf sort of situation where people hear sirens and see sun and then learn to ignore them because they don't ever feel that they're actually in danger when they hear the sirens. It's just one of the things that I was initially worried about, and I think the reference about the wind in Frankfurt, the rumor with the sirens being activated, kind of substantiates that. I understand too, though, that if there's a regional threat, it's maybe worth activating the sirens. But what I wanted to ask about was in July, I mean, I remember roughly 6 weeks ago, there was a very severe storm, I believe, that was heading, it went through Manhattan and was just to the north of us. And it seemed as though it had completely vacated our area before the sirens initiated. And it was almost like, well, what good is that now?
Well, and that activation was by the regional plan, and that came from a result of, I believe, because once it's activated, I'm going to enter who hit it,
Right.
Who ordered it, because we have several, fire departments and police agencies in our regions that are watching storms, and that may have been an episode that hit the Beecher area, and they said, well, hit the sirens, and so, and I know the public gets under the cry wolf, but I got to tell you, in the recent episodes in July, I mean, I literally had to go and order people off the baseball fields because they are not watching Weather Channel. Now, we didn't activate, but they put out the severe storm threat. And I can tell you, the tornado is not the threat as much as these severe storms, because they'll come in and those winds will go up to 70-mile-an-hour warnings. Not a place you want to be on the baseball field. And of course, the lightning. And it looks great. You can, we go out to the parks, and they were loaded playing games on a Saturday. And I said, it's time to leave. And you see that, what's coming. And people made comments from another community, so at least the police come by and get our butts off the fields, because other towns don't do it. But we do pay close attention to weather. I guess like this, and I have my concerns about weather, because weather has no time frame. It can be sunny for 5 minutes, and the next 5 minutes later it can turn into a bad day at Black Rock, we'll say. So, and the storms that go on in our communities that got hit, a few years ago we had our real tornado events going on, these areas south of us, there was no warning. 5 minutes was about it. It looked like a great day in paradise, and these storms come through, and then it's devastation, and there's no warning. So I believe that I wish I could say the public also needs to be aware of weather. I mean, these weather radios are not high-priced items. For $30, you can put one in your house and be tuned in as much as we are about it. But people really need to be aware of weather and pay attention themselves. I mean, we can alert them, we can sign the sirens off, but this weather, like I said, you better be alert in today's world, because this weather comes all of a sudden and doesn't necessarily give you any warning. So, we are monitoring weather, and like I said, Mr. Hupke's comments, I'm not sure, I really tell the public, I'd rather for you to be scared and paying attention than not be aware of anything, and when it hits, you're a casualty of weather.
If we put a call in to activate, are they activated, or is it discretionary for the dispatcher?
If it's ordered by me, number one, my communication device can activate it from my portable that's always with me.
So it's automatic.
It's automatic. I can order my town or I can order the whole region.
Okay.
That's based on, like I said, storm fronts. And if they're not coming near us, and we watch all the weather maps, they're on our applications on our phones like with everybody here, then I'm not going to activate, and that's where I haven't done it. But if another community does it and the dispatch world didn't get it overruled, don't hit Peotones, I'm not going to cry after it's done. That's a moot point. It's 2 minutes of the loud noise, and people may say what, but I wish really people would understand that the weather sirens are an alert to really monitor weather. Because people come up and say, well, how come there's not a siren when it's clear? It's called the National Weather Service, and watching TV or listen to weather radios. And it's, it's really part of the be ready concept. We as a community need to be ready for everything, and as individuals. And weather radios are a very cheap device to have, or your cell phones that people have now, and you can sign up and get all these weather alerts on all these devices. Now I'm going to tell you, will they wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Absolutely. They wake up Mr. Gray and myself, because they don't care about the time of day, and we get them. They're not just for Will County. They put out these regional things, and beep, beep, bop, boop. That thing goes off, and you wake up and you see about 20 messages about the weather service. But this is the prime time, so we are concerned about weather, and we try to do our best to monitor and not scare the public. But really, I can stand by and tell anybody, I'd rather for you to be scared out of your wits than be a casualty if it hits, because these areas that had devastation, there wasn't much warning at all. I mean, hopefully I've answered kind of the concept why we do it the way we do. Because there have been these groups of EastCom, these police and fire chiefs and the mayors, this has been a long discussion. This is not just something, and we, in fact, at our recent meeting with the mayor and the EastCom board of mayors, talking about this, we talk about the weather. And we said, everybody content with the way the weather activation is going on for our 8 communities now part of it. And like I said, all of them are at the concept, we can't rely on one person to hit the siren or order it. That used to be the way it was. Or 8 different systems. They have in the radio room, they have a couple easy buttons, and they can select what they're going to hit, or they have the big red button, and they activate everybody. But during the storms in July, it was pretty harsh July we had. So, and we were lucky in our community because we really didn't have any damage, but we had some serious thunder boomers. So hopefully I've kind of rested any concerns about it. Anytime the weather is a problem, I know Mr. Gray and myself are awake and we communicate about Weather World. And if it has to be, I come out on the streets, and I've seen George show up at all times of the hours, because we are out there. Now, you may not see us. I don't expect you to see us. Sometimes the weather's so wet I can't find myself, but the day I ordered the baseball team to get off the field, some mini-me's I call them, that's what I call little people playing baseball. A few minutes later, everybody was cleared to park, and they were gone, and Peotone was getting beat by Beecher for hopefully the game got delayed and they could start over. But the storm came through, and that's when we got all that heavy rain on a Saturday, and it got blinding for about 10 minutes. That rain was sideways, and you're like, holy cow. It's a good thing we got them off there. And I thought it was a compliment for the police in the community when other parents from other groups are saying, hey, I'm in Beecher, and the police don't come by there and tell us to get the save yourself, because we do watch weather. So, sorry to prolong that.
I think my concern was more not trying to say the police chief or anybody else isn't doing their job. I think my concern was more of who actually was responsible or is responsible for the explanation of, I don't think anybody really knew that. So it's not a question of you not doing your job or George Gray not doing their job or the police department. It's just was a question of who was responsible for activating that system.
And our,
Just so that-
and our webpage does have a posting, or it used to have, on the weather world, how we activate and why we are activating. I think it's still on your drop down unless you take it away.
You know, I had to check since we revised it a week ago.
We had a big
Yeah.
discussion on that when the microburst came through. Took out the top of my house right here in this room. You guys remember that, or around
Yeah,
at
when
that
all the
time?
trees fell. A
The
week of
roofs-
tree
the
removal,
roofs,
the
the top
roofs
of my
caved
roof
in,
come off.
and that was not
There was
even a weather.
There was a big discussion here. We had everybody in this room over that.
So what can happen sometimes, which is understandable, we could make a judgment call here that it's not worth sending an alert for sirens to go off. So what appears to be a minor storm passing through, once it passes us, someone else could, in a different community, call it in as a potential threat, which will ignite the whole thing.
It could ignite it, and in that case, it would go off, and people say, well, I didn't know there was a threat.
Okay.
But in the evaluation of trying to work together with everybody, the dispatch room is operated 24/7. They watch the weather maps, they see all the teletypes, and if you want to adventure, be in the radio room when weather goes bad, because all those teletypes and faxes just go boom, 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 and the machines and the weather radios, you know how they go. Every second there's another broadcast if you have another weather radio in your house. So a lot of people are monitoring this, and at times when you have a regional activation plan, which is unique, we're the only communities on the east side of Will County. Every other town has individual activation policies, and I just don't think that works. It didn't work before. And so we put a lot of time and effort into this discussion, hours and time with administrators and mayors and the public safety people to evaluate what's best for this weather world, because we are in the Illinois, and this is Tornado Alley, and it can be severe. And unfortunately, down south in the recent years, there was no warning to those towns that got devastated down by southern Illinois University and that town there was nothing. All of a sudden, nice day, weather turns crappy, town gone, weather clears up. And there was no activation of anything because it happens too fast. So, like I said, there can be times where it looks great, the weather's went around us, another town orders it, and I know what times it goes off because I'm sitting in my house going, oh, I know what happened, but after it's activated, I mean, it's almost too late. But those really, in the time that we've been doing a regional activation, this is the first year that's really happened. I mean, our communities, I used to hear about it because our storms were coming and originating near us first and heading their way. So many times I'd activate them, they'd alert Crete and the northern part of Crete, and they'd say, well, the storm didn't make it our way. Well, you tell the storm that because they activated. So it's kind of the balance. Sometimes they can affect the communities and it passes, but I guess I just would impress the public, you know, we're not isolated. We're not depending on one person to call and activate. And people can assume that activation of tornado sirens is only when you see it on the ground. Well, if it's on the ground or dropping, it's way too late. And this is a whole, we constantly monitor weather, and we will continue to see what's best for our group and the village of Peotone to be weather conscious to ensure the safety and alert to our community. But I can't impress enough, the public should put their nickels and dimes together and get a $30 weather radio, or get the applications on their phone and pay attention to this, because, it can happen. And, like you said, Mr. Callahan, other communities can activate it after it's already passed us, never goes there, but in the same sense, Crete and Beecher, at times we've activated and the storms went away before it got to them. They're like, the same avenue. People get alerted, well, why the storm didn't make it our way? Well, when it's red on the screen, they're showing circulation. It actually shouldn't be the tornadoes coming. I just say, be alert and pay attention to weather, because
I mean, that's the function of the tornado siren, is to be alert and pay attention. There's danger in the area. That's why we do not issue an all clear. If you talk to emergency managers, professional emergency managers, they will tell you, don't get into an all clear policy. Because just because one red cell went by and it's in Beecher and it's in, that doesn't mean that another one can't drop 5 miles west of Peotone, because the atmosphere is set up to be able to do those kinds of things. And if, that's one of the reasons why we went to a semi-regional, it's three villages. Because if it hits any of those, it's not like there's some magic line that says, okay, 5 miles outside of Moni or 2 miles outside of Moni, it's all clear and nothing will happen. No, if it's that close, there's a chance something's going to happen here.
Can we make sure that that's still on our website and in fact do what we can to publicize how it works, just so that people learn or understand the concept that it goes off not because there's necessarily an immediate threat, but it's just something to be aware of, that there's a nearby threat.
Well, when the storms recently went through Wilton Center,
Right.
took out, all the high lines at Mantino and Wilton Center, it's the History Channel. We did not activate sirens because the weather was not in our community. But that was a very intense storm that stayed west of us. And we were monitoring because Mr. Gray and I were out that night watching and hearing it, but we didn't like to activate. And I don't think our region did either, because everything was a little bit to the west of us.
Sure.
But we were sure paying close attention and monitoring Will County's emergency management channel, because that's where all the spotters report all this. And so that airwave, we continue to monitor that. So like I said, we'll make sure the public's aware of it, but we will continue to evaluate other techniques to make sure that our regional plan works. Like I said, in Will County, we're the only communities that have a regional activation policy. I don't know about the Mr. Hack's communities up in Frankfurt and them, but that I don't deal with their comm center, but it's very unique, and the reason we put such emphasis in it because we can't wait for the mayor or the chief or the fire guy or the sewer guy to be the one that says, hit the box.
Sure.
And so many times in these communities, that was the way it is. And we just prefer, like I said, it's our most, it's one of our most grave concerns for our community is the threat of weather. Hopefully we don't have any more July weather. We got lucky because we didn't have severe damage, just had a lot of power outage. So, Mr. Hopefully I kind of answered the concepts of that, and I'll be more than happy to add any more additional information.
Thank you.
Trustees, any other relative comments? Hearing none, I will entertain, we don't have any notices of anything.
Do you have any updates on the new street signage?
The parts are in, they're trying to get them done, put some more up. I know they've done some locates, they're in the process of doing some, but they're also in the process of taking down ash trees and chipping. So yes, it's in the program, they've put some up, they'll be putting some more up. I don't know exactly where, I know it's in the.
How's the position for that position is open, is it not, for the planning and zoning?
We had a resignation.
How is that going to be advertised, or how is that going to be filled?
It's appointed. That's
Well, I understand, but how are you going to, is it going to be advertised? People are going to be applying for this, or I understand it's appointment, but how does that person, how do people know that this position is open?
We will, at this point, I have not looked at replacing anybody specifically. I have requested suggestions from staff, and want to see where that leads me.
And there's one last thing. Is it possible, just asking, is there any way possible of getting our agenda packets on Thursdays instead of Fridays for more time for research for people?
I think we could if that is something the board would like to do, I think we can check with staff to make sure that there are no unforeseen issues with deadlines of items that need to go in there being moved up to a point where it may shut the door on some things earlier than that currently is being done. So we'll look into it.
One of the things when I first came on the board was I was surprised at the limited time that we have to, over a weekend, to be able to review what's there and prepare for the meeting on Monday. And initially, I mean, my personal thoughts, which I never expressed at that time, were that I'd like my packet, you know, like the Monday before our meeting, which I recognize there's issues there, because if things come up during the week, they may not make it into that next meeting when it would be more convenient if they were. But I certainly do agree that I wish I had more opportunity to obtain the packet and look into those issues that are there. And as far as, you know, looking at fence requests on, you know, boundaries, being able to look at it myself, or whatever else might happen to come up. So I would certainly agree or request that we receive our packets Thursday at the latest, if not earlier. And I understand that might create possibly a 1-week delay for someone getting on the agenda for the next meeting, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worthwhile because it gives us an opportunity to inquire into things more thoroughly before we make decisions on them.
We will look into it. I think one of the things that, off the top of my head, that I can think of that might present an issue has to do with when different financial reports and other things, when they have to be put together and when people have to turn things in by in order to make it work. Yeah, and I think that's a question that needs to be investigated so that we don't trying to do one thing cause another issue that was unforeseen. So,
And then on a lighter note.
yes.
I'd like to thank all the parties involved in the car show that was sponsored by Pearl Dodge on Saturday, August 9th. It turned out to be pretty nice. What I really would be nice to see some kind of an organization here in Peotone sponsor a cruise night. I think it would be good for the businesses in town. And also, I'd like to thank the Peotone American Legion Post for the great job they did for the coining this past Sunday for Michael Swees. Of course, Sue Wackerlin is our military mom over there. She started this program, and it's been great to see all these young men and women that are or will be serving our country. It's just a great program.
Thank you. We agree. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the August 11th, 2014 Village Board meeting.
Motion. Sorry.
Okay, motion by trustee Hupkey, seconded by trustee Forsythe. To adjourn the August 11th, 2014 Village of Peotone Board meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Hupkey.
Yes.
Mr. Forsythe.
Yes.
Mr. Callahan.
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Mr. Wicker.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, meeting officially adjourned.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, meeting's over.